If you've ever thought about driving to Alaska, you have absolutely heard of the Alcan Highway or the Alaskan Canadian Highway or the Alaska Highway. You also probably have heard about all the horror stories that go with it. I'm Katie, this is Joe. We just finished driving the Alcan Highway and we survived.
It's July of 2026 and we just traveled from the Alcan, and our experience was not that bad. There is a rough section that's about 118, 120 miles. It kind of starts right around what's called Destruction Bay and ends around Beaver Creek. Now, Destruction Bay has absolutely nothing to do with what it's going to do to your vehicle. That is the name of the area for other purposes. So, how dangerous was the Alcan for us? I'm sure you've heard of all of the different things that are on the Alcan and that can go wrong. There's potholes. People, if you read the internet, people say that there's potholes big enough to swallow your vehicle, that there's road heaves, which road heaves are caused when the roads and the ground below the pavement freezes and it causes the pavement to rise up. You've probably heard of the gravel roads and the broken windshields and construction zones and shredded tires.
Wildlife.
We did not experience all these horrible things. I do not want to make light of the seriousness of traveling the road. We do need to prepare for traveling this highway, and we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about what we did to prepare.
One of the big first ones I think that I get asked all the time is about the fuel and no help available. Again, not trying to downplay anything. We went in July, which is peak season, and we had no issues with fuel at all. We passed gas stations because there was plenty of them open.
We never had a problem. Never had the gas gauge get below half a tank. There was always some place within 150 miles at the very most that we were able to stop and get fuel, and everybody had fuel. There were some old stations that had closed and went out of business at some point in time, but those that were open were fairly plentiful and had fuel and was not an issue.
They were not always cheap though.
No.
So don't pay attention to the price when you're on the road. You just have to go and you just have to know and prepare and plan for that. Also, it's important, I think we had planned for 7 days, about 6-7 days to get from Dawson Creek into Alaska. It only took us about 3.5, 4-ish days, and it was not fatiguing us at all.
And the reason we got through it much quicker is because it was not nearly as bad as what we had expected. So what we actually experienced was there were road heaves, there were potholes, but the majority of the highway, and we also experienced gravel, unpaved roads, but the majority of the highway is paved. And there are road heaves, and there are potholes. There is bad roadway. But what you will find is that most of the time, the road heaves and the potholes are marked along the side of the highway with either red flags or signs that say poor road, noting that there is a problem ahead.
Construction zones, that's another thing we had heard a lot about going into it, and they absolutely were there, but they're very well marked in advance, and they had pilot cars, which is just a car you follow through the construction zone.
You'll come to a stop sign, and just like any other construction zone, it'll either tell you to travel through slowly or to stop. Well, these tell you to stop until the pilot car arrives. It arrives, it turns around, and it takes you and what other string of vehicles are behind you through the construction zone. We never probably waited more than about 15 minutes at the most for a pilot car to arrive. So it really was not an issue. The construction zones themselves were not dangerous. They were safe, wide roadways. They were gravel at the time, but they were not rough. And in fact, what we found is that the gravel portions of the highway were actually smoother and did not have the road heaves in them. They were actually smoother than the paved portions.
In that really bad area that we talked about from Destruction Bay onward. Also, because of the construction zones, and then when we were in the gravel areas, we did experience a lot of dust. That is also a very true thing, and it's pretty bad in those areas. But same thing, you just drive and pay attention to what's best you can, what's in front of you. Oh, wildlife. While we did see bears and moose and bison and other animals, we saw them. There was no issues with them jumping on top of our cars or running in the middle of the road in front of us. We drove and paid attention to the tree lines on the side of the roads. And the tree line is pretty far back from the highway, so you can see it's very wide areas most of the time. They weren't a hindrance for us or dangerous that we found. Another hot topic that we've been asked a lot about and also was a major concern for us was the wear and tear on our vehicle and our tires, especially our tires. As far as our experience, we experienced some minor things, but very little, like no major issue at all.
Really, the only issue that we had is one of the things that people always talk about is the trucks that are traveling on the Alcan and what kind of havoc they can cause for you. And when I say trucks, I'm talking about the large tractor trailer semi trucks. Yeah, we didn't see a lot of them. There were some, but we didn't see a lot. Those that we did pass or meet head on, most of them were driving responsibly. We did have one guy that we were meeting head on, and he was traveling way faster than he should have. He was kicking up a lot of dust and rocks, and so that was the one casualty that we did have that we expected and thought might happen, and that was a chipped windshield. Not a cracked windshield, not a shattered windshield that like people sometimes talk about on the Alcan. We just got a chip from a rock that came up. As far as shredded tires from potholes and that type, we never experienced any issue with our tires on the Alcan. And to be quite frank, the entire 1,300 miles that we traveled the Alcan, we did not see the first disabled vehicle. I'm not saying that you can't have breakdowns and flat tires and other issues. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we just traveled it, did not have an issue, didn't see anyone else having an issue. We just want to put aside some fears that people may have when you read some of these other sites and watch some of these other videos of people talking about the horror stories of the Alcan. It's not as bad as what some of the things that you read. If you've ever lived in an area where there's dirt roads and have had to travel dirt roads, which we both lived in small towns with dirt roads everywhere you went, it was no worse than that. It really wasn't.
It's better than some of our paved county roads back home. Actually, we were very much, this is all we've been worried about all this time.
And that's not to say that different times of the year,
yes,
that it may not be worse. Rainy season,
right after the winter season, maybe.
I'm sure that there could be weather conditions and travel, amount of vehicles, whatever, that could make the road much worse. The point that we're trying to make is it was not as bad as what we expected from what we had read.
Yeah. Another kind of a minor topic, but could be really important to people, is lodging. We're in a camper van. We can literally pull over anywhere, but we noticed there was plenty of campsites. Some were free, some were maybe $18, I think. There's plenty of pullouts that you can just pull over, especially if you're self-contained. We saw cabins and some little motels along the way. You're not going to find anything fancy or anything, but there's plenty of things along the way, and you just call ahead or pull in and see if they have vacancy.
Yeah, and instead, we, for the most part, stopped at private campsites and paid, I think it was like $18 or something. Some may have electric, some may have water, some may not. But we also found that even had there not been those, there are plenty of pullouts that you can just pull over. We saw plenty of people doing that.
They have pit toilets usually.
They usually have a pit or vault toilet that you can use if you need to. And they looked very safe. They were not shady looking. They're right alongside the road. And I would have had no issue staying at one of those.
So again, our experience was that the Alaska Highway was not as scary as we were led to believe. The hype is just at its hype. Maybe people have not experienced roads and things like that in their lives, and I could see that being maybe a little bit intimidating possibly. But if you have ever driven a dirt road in your life, this is not really any different. And these weren't even dirt roads. I think the hype is just a little bit too much, and I've seen people say they're not going to drive it because of the fear people have put in them. So I think what made it easier though is the preparation that we did ahead of time. So we made sure that we had the half tank rule.
We also made sure that the normal things that you should do before any trip, but especially on something that is a little different than your normal U.S. highway, we made sure that we had a good full-size spare tire. Thankfully, we didn't need it. Didn't see anyone else with flats, but that's not to say that it won't happen. We made sure that we had extra fluids, and one of the things, not just your radiator fluid and oil and brake fluid and transmission fluid, but we also made sure that we had extra windshield washer fluid, because that's something that you may need between the bugs and the dust on the gravel roads. One of the other casualties that we had was a ratchet strap. We have a cargo shelf on the back of the van in the hitch, and I think probably due to some of the road heaves, because they are bumpy, not really anything to be afraid of, but they are bumpy, and some of our stuff on the cargo shelf shifted a little bit, and we ended up losing a strap. No big deal. We found it at one of our stops, and we always check around the vehicle, make sure everything's okay. But we had extra straps just for that purpose, so we just put another strap on our cargo and went on our way.
I think another thing that we did that was really good preparation, we had about a week to travel, but we gave ourselves time. We did not need that time. We drove ahead and arrived at Alaska much earlier than we expected, but having that time allowed us to drive and avoid wildlife. It let us stop when we were tired. I think it just was helpful. So make sure you're not trying to rush the trip either. We also had the milepost book. We did not end up needing it because we also downloaded offline maps, but we did not need either of those because we had Starlink. You will have very, very patchy phone service. Our Verizon, which is usually great, was so Starlink saved us.
Yeah, you will have, in most cases, you will have the satellite emergency service on your phone. But other than that, for a good portion of the Alcan, you will not have normal cell service. So
which means GPS.
Start was absolutely amazing. We never had any issue at all. We always had our GPS and Wi-Fi calling if we needed it.
Yep. Trying to think what else. Oh, we only drove during daylight hours, which is super easy to do because right now, as you can see outside, it is 10 o'clock in Alaska, 10 p.m. and it's this bright, so there's never any issues with driving in daylight hours. And again, this was in July. It is July.
That had a lot to do with also with the animal. We were able to see them in well in advance.
Yep.
And with the conditions of the road, we were able to see well in advance if there were any potholes or road heaves.
Yep.
We were able to see that and watch the other vehicles in front of you. If you see them slowing down, you know something's going on. They're either looking at an animal or they're concerned about the road conditions. So.
The dust is a real thing. It's a Canadian law, I believe, to drive with your headlights on anyway. But when you're in any area that has dust, make sure your headlights are on so you can see, people can see you, you can see others. It's just really important to do that. Again, driving the conditions of the road. Be prepared. Like I said, we gave ourselves time. The construction zones are going to happen. You are going to have to sit and wait for your turn to go. They are slow driving through the construction zone behind the pilot cars. So just be prepared to have the patience for that. You can't be in a hurry trying to get through this road. It's just not feasible that way.
So the most important thing, and that I cannot stress anymore, the absolute most important thing that we found is you need to travel slowly. And everybody says that. And my concern going into this was, well, what does slowly mean? Does that like mean 10 or 15 miles an hour? And the answer to that is no. The majority of the time we were able to travel, I don't know, we probably averaged 40 miles an hour. So there was times we were going faster than that, times we were going slower than that. The bottom line is you drive a speed that is conducive to the road conditions. There were times that it was a little rough, so you traveled slower. Times that it was not a problem, so you traveled a little faster. And that was even on the gravel roads. The gravel roads were not an issue. The biggest thing is traveling slow enough that you can see that there's potholes ahead, you can see that there's a road heave ahead, and that you can slow down in time for them.
Yep. So I think the most important thing, and the reason we're even doing this video, is we do not want you to be afraid of the Alcan. The Alaska Highway is not that scary. Please don't let that stop you from traveling if you've ever wanted to drive there. So I want to ask you, are you planning to drive there, or what is holding you back? Has it been the Alcan, the fear? Please let us know what's been your concern, or are you planning on going sometime soon? We hope this helps you a little bit in your preparation or even easing your fears. Again, please don't let the Alcan scare you away from making this road trip. It is one of the beautiful drives that we've been on. It's just amazing through Canada into Alaska. It's worth seeing if you're able and willing to do it. So again, hope this helps. And if so, please subscribe, share, comment, let us know what you'd like to see. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.